السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله خير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم شر الأمور محدثاتها كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Inshallah, tonight we start a new chapter of عمدة الفقه لشيخ الإسلام الموفق ابن قدامة مقدسي رحمه الله, and that is the chapter or كتاب النكاح. كتاب النكاح, chapter of marriage. And as we have mentioned before, that there is an order and there is a sense behind the order that, and logic behind the order that the ulama arrange the chapters of their books. So we already talked about, when we started, we talked about al-miyah, and we talked about water and fluids. Then we talked about the ibadat. We said the connection is you need water to be in tahara. We also talked about awani, containers, because these are the containers that contain or keep the water in. Also we talked about mu'amalat, and we said the ibadah, as-salah, as-siyam, az-zakat is your relationship with Allah. And then mu'amalat is the transactions between you and other people. And since you have established your relationship with Allah, and you have, which is your purpose in life, and you had dealt with some business transactions, as a result, because people when they deal with transactions with business, or when they do business, they intend to make money. So now you have money, you need someone to spend it. So they talk about wives and marriage. Okay? Actually, marriage is a contract. Marriage itself is a contract and it's a transaction. That's why it comes right after the book or kitab or mu'amalat, the business transactions, because it's sort of business, because it's exchange of benefit. It's exchange of benefit. But it's not a transaction of mu'awadat. It's not mu'awad. You do not get serviced. You pay and you get serviced. In that sense, if that becomes the point or the intent, then the marriage becomes haram. Okay? The marriage becomes haram. So, marriage in general is a transaction, and it's mu'amala maliyya as well. It's financial transaction because there is mahr involved. Okay, there's mahr involved, but in general, we do not specify it and say it's mu'amalat mu'awada. Mu'awada exchange of benefit in the sense of I give and you give in return. I pay and I buy. I pay and you give me. It's not that like that. But in general, it's a transaction. It's a transaction, and that is what Ibn Abdin, rahimahullah, the Imam al-Hanafi, called it. So it's very important. That's why they connect between the chapter of transactions, financial, and right after that they talk about marriage. Okay? Because it's related in the sense of, in general, marriage itself is a transaction. قال المصنف رحمه الله النكاح من سنن المرسلين وهو أفضل من التخلي لنفل العبادة، لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم رد على عثمان بن مضعون التبتل وقال: يا معشر الشباب من استطاع منكم الباءة فليتزوج فإنه أغض للبصر وأحصن للفرج، ومن لم يستطع فعليه بالصوم فإنه له وجاء، ومن أراد خطبة امرأة فله النظر منها إلى ما يظهر عادة كوجهها وكفيها وقدميها، ولا يخطب الرجل على خطبة أخيه إلا ألا يسكن إليه، ولا يجوز التصريح بخطبة معتدة، ويجوز التعريض بخطبة البائن خاصة، فيقول: لا تفوتيني بنفسك وإني في مثلك لراغب ونحو ذلك. This is the introduction of Ibn Qudama rahimahullah into the chapter or the book of nikah or marriage. In nikah, in general, it's called, when we say nikah, we mean the contract, right? They had nikah, they had a contract of marriage. That is what the general meaning is. But also, and the ulama have different opinion. Some of them said النكاح also على الحقيقة means العقد، لكن على المجاز means الوطء. Okay? النكاح, when you hear the word النكاح, oh, so and so had his nikah, so you understand that he got married. Okay? That is the real meaning. The main meaning is the contract itself. But also nikah, also understood as al-wat', as the intercourse itself. And the ulama, some of them went to say it's majaz, figuratively, but other ulama like Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said no, it means both ala al-haqiqa. In reality, the word nikah means both. It means contract, the marriage contract, conducting the marriage contract, or it means getting involved in a sexual intercourse with one spouse. Okay, so there's important in the difference of these, because as a result you get the understanding of the Quran. Because some of the ayat of the Quran, since the Quran used the nikah, sometimes if it has to do with al-aqd, then you establish a ruling, and if the nikah means al-wat', meaning intercourse, then it's a different rule. Okay, and we will see that as we go on, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا تَحِلُّ لَهُ مِن بَعْدُ حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ زَوْجًا غَيْرَهُ. Allah says about the woman who gets divorced 3 times by her husband. Now after the 3rd time, she cannot marry him anymore. First of all, she cannot go back to him. Okay? Second of all, she cannot marry him again unless she marries someone else. Now that someone else, is it enough to do the contract and then he divorces her before he touches her? Now she's qualified, or she can't go back to her husband? Or there has to be intercourse, meaning consummation of marriage? The right opinion, which comes from the hadith, that nikah here, فَلَا تَحِلُّ لَهُ مِن بَعْدُ حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ, she is not permissible for him in marriage, her first husband who divorced her 3 times, until tankih. If we take nikah means only the contract, then the ayah means unless she gets married again in a contract enough. And if she has another contract, that's enough, and she gets divorced. But the right meaning, supported by the sunnah and clarified by the sunnah, tankih get married and the marriage gets consummated. She has to sleep with her new husband. Then if they cannot agree with each other and it happens he divorces her, then she can go back to the first husband if they agree on that. But the point is, we understand that the word nikah can mean both al-aqd and al-wat'. Al-aqd the contract, and the wat' the consummation, the intercourse between the spouses. And the Arabs, in the Arabic language, you find something sweet, as they call it, latifa. When they want to use nikah in the meaning of the contract, they say نكح الرجل المرأة أو نكح زيد فاطمة, meaning that Zayd did his contract, or he got married to Fatima. But when they say نكح الرجل أو نكح زيد زوجه أو زوجته, that means he had intercourse with his wife, because it says Zayd practiced nikah with his wife. Obviously it doesn't mean that he got married to his wife. It means he had intercourse with his wife. Alright? So that's why they discuss the meaning of nikah. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ about al-muhallil, about the second husband after she gets divorced 3 times. يقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا حتى يذوق عسيلتك وتذوقين عسيلته. No, until you have intercourse. Okay? Because when she wanted to go back to her first husband, if it was enough the contract and get divorced and go back to him, he said no, until you sleep together. Okay? So if a woman gets divorced 3 times by the same husband, then she cannot marry him again unless she gets involved with another marriage. And she consummates that marriage and she gets divorced again without plotting, without planning, and it's not settled. ملعون, يعني cursed. المحلل والمحلل له. We'll talk about that later. That is something, يعني a major sin. A woman gets divorced 3 times, then the first husband wants to stay with her, she wants to stay with him, so he goes and he gets someone, he pays him some dollars, he tells him, marry my wife, just on papers, I marry you, my daughter, I accept, and then once the contract is full, he says, I divorce you, and then he gets his money. That is mal'oon. So it's very important that we will talk about that, inshallah. And أحسن, يعني the best definition for النكاح that we are talking about, كما قال ابن عابدين رحمه الله, هو عقد يحل استمتاع كل واحد من الزوجين بالآخر على وجه مشروع. He said it's a contract, the marriage contract. It's a contract that allows the enjoyment of each spouse, or of one spouse, of another, يعني of his spouse, that contract that permits, that's عقد النكاح, nikah itself, a contract that permits one spouse to enjoy his spouse, or one person to enjoy his spouse, على وجه مشروع, in a permissible fashion. Now, in permissible fashion is important. Now, when is it haram where enjoying the wife or the husband is haram? In what situations? Who gives me an example? Yeah, during her menses, during her period, it's haram for him to enjoy her in the place of birth. Okay? What else?
You have intercourse with her in a fashion that is not according to the
Okay. Anal sex is haram. That is also haram, is not allowed just because your wife. That doesn't make it permissible. Wa alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. Yeah. Okay. While she's fasting, faridah, and while you're fasting, faridah, it's haram. It's good. So there are many ways, or many times, that it's haram. Post-partum, after her birth, the period after her birth, that is haram as well. So it's very important that the definition says it's a contract, and nikah is a contract that permits one person of enjoying his spouse or her spouse in a permissible fashion. In a permissible fashion. So these are some of the examples. يقول المؤلف رحمه الله ابن قدامة says والنكاح من سنن المرسلين. So nikah is the habits of the mursalin. Mursalin يعني Rusul, the messengers, the prophets. So it's their sunnah. Now if he did not say the sunnah of the people or the sunnah of the layman, if he goes to say the highest, يعني the sunnah of the prophets, that means it should be followed by everyone else, because the prophets are examples. So sunnah al-mursaleen, he says rahimahullah, that النكاح is من سنن المرسلين. يعني who turns his back away from النكاح is someone who turns away from the sunnah of the messengers. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ رُسُلًا وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَذُرِّيَّةً. Allah tells the Prophet in Surah Al-Ra'd, and we have sent from before you messengers, and we made for them wives or spouses, wives and offspring. Okay? So it's an indication and clear evidence that it is the sunnah of the prophets and the messengers before the Prophet ﷺ, including the Prophet ﷺ, that marriage, it's their sunnah and it should be followed. يعني some people might mention the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says سيدا وحصورا ونبيا من الصالحين about Yahya alayhi salam. They said Yahya did not get married. Hasur, يعني some of them said Hasur يعني did not have desire for women. And some said Hasur يعني could not function well with women. And that is يعني has no proof. And the right opinion, Allahu A'lam, Hasuran يعني avoids the khaba'ith. He avoids the haram when it comes to intercourse. So he avoids the haram. He was very chaste. Okay? But regardless, even if he was an exception, he's an exception. Okay? That is Yahya alayhi salam. So that is the opinion. يقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم صحيحين, Anas رضي الله عنه says that few people came to the wife of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, Aisha, and they asked about the ibadah of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. So Aisha رضي الله عنها told them that how he used to make ibadah, to worship. So as if they استقلوها, يعني they were not surprised. They thought it was little ibadah, the messengers are sent. So they told themselves, this is the messenger of Allah. Allah had forgiven him all his sins. Okay? So يعني he doesn't need to do much ibadah. So one of them said, I will fast and I will not break my fast. And he'll fast every single day. The other said, and we know the Prophet ﷺ would fast and break his fast. The other said, I will pray at night, I will not sleep. And the third said, I will not marry the women. يعني he gonna tabattul hada, rahbaniyya. He will not marry the women. يعني thinking women keep me busy from worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he wants to dedicate all his time for the ibadah. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard that, he was upset. When he heard the story, he was upset, and he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ما بال أقوام يرغبون عن سنتي. يعني what's wrong with a group of people or with people who turn their back to my sunnah? They don't practice my sunnah. What's wrong with people who don't practice my sunnah? ولكني أصوم وأفطر وأنام وأرقد وأتزوج النساء فمن رغب عن سنتي فليس مني. He said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what's wrong with people? And that's from his adab sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he will not mention names. He said ما بال أقوام, يعني what's wrong with people? What's wrong with a group of people? He will not specifically mention names, especially when the message needs to be general and to everyone. So there is no point of mentioning names. So he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what's wrong with a group of people or with people who turn their back away from my sunnah? Then he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I fast and I break my fast. Sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. Some days I fast, some days I don't. Sometimes I sleep and sometimes I stand up, and I marry the women. Then he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so whoever turns his sunnah or his back to my sunnah does not belong to me. And that's serious threat. Who does not practice my sunnah does not belong to me. So that is something, another dalil, that in nikah is something, and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, كما قال ابن قدامة رحمه الله, إنها من سنن المرسلين. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged to marry the women who are wadud al-walud, to marry the woman whose who can have many kids. And how you know if a woman can have many kids? Huh? If he says marry the one who can have many kids, the wadud, the loving woman, the one who's fertile. Yeah.
Her mother, her aunts.
Exactly. You usually look at her mom, okay? Look at her sisters, look at her relatives, okay? So that is what the Prophet said, تزوج الودود الودود فإني مكاثر بكم الأمم. He said, marry the loving person, the kind person, the sweet person, الولود, the fertile, because I will brag. I will use you to brag in front of the nations in the day of judgment and in the numbers. And in one riwayah, فَإِنِّي مُكَاثِرٌ بِكُمُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ, I will have more of you than the other prophets. He wants his ummah to be the biggest ummah, and it will be, inshallah. Also the Prophet ﷺ answered back Uthman ibn Mad'un, one of the Sahaba, who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he asked him, he wanted tabattul. And tabattul, they do an operation where they remove the testicles. So he doesn't have any more desire. So the Prophet, so that's a tabattul. And the rahbaniyah, celibacy. That is rejected in Islam. That is haram in Islam. Celibacy is haram in Islam. Okay? So the point is, the Prophet ﷺ turned down Uthman ibn Mad'un. Uthman, when he asked that, because these people wanted the akhirah. So they thought anything that will keep us away from the akhirah, we need to get rid of it. يقول سعد بن أبي وقاص ولو أذن له لاختصينا. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and some of the Sahaba, they were waiting for the answer of the Prophet ﷺ to Uthman. How he going to answer him? Is he going to approve ﷺ or not? So when the Prophet ﷺ did not approve, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu said, if he would have permitted him, then we would have done the same. To be focused on the ibadah. So all these are adillah that in nikah is sunnah, and we will see that sometimes it's wajib, and sometimes it's haram, and sometimes it's makruh, and sometimes it's mubah, and sometimes it's sunnah and recommended. يقول المؤلف رحمه الله وهو أفضل من التخلي لنفل العبادة, and it's better than وعليكم السلام. It's better, marriage, it's better than to free yourself for ibadah. Marriage is better than freeing yourself for ibadah. Someone will say, if I get married, I'm going to be busy, I won't come to the masjid, I won't pray as much, I won't fast as much, I won't do that as much, so I won't get married. It's better. But the opinion of the majority of the ulama, and the right opinion, that marriage is better than freeing oneself, dedicating your whole life for ibadah on the account of marriage, thinking that marriage will keep me away from ibadah. Okay? يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى فانكحوا ما طاب لكم من النساء مثنى وثلاث ورباع. The people who went to say that العبادة is better than freeing oneself for worship is better than nikah, they said that based on the fact that getting married is not obligatory, because if it was obligatory they cannot say that. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُمْ. So فَانْكِحُوا get married to whatever you wish, whatever you like, 2, 3, 4. So the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used مَا طَابَ لَكُمْ indicates that it's a matter of choice, it's optional. مَا طَابَ لَكُمْ whatever you like. Okay, so there was no command to mean obligation. But we will see some scenarios, getting married is an obligation. Okay, is an obligation. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال فمن رغب عن سنتي فليس مني. And also the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, whoever turns his back to my sunnah does not belong to me. Okay, which indicates that marriage is better than nafil. Okay, the better than freeing oneself for nafil, for the extra ibadah. I used ibadah, but what they're talking about, the extra ibadah, the obligatory, but the extra ibadah. You have, whether you're married or not, you have to fulfill the obligation. But here we're talking about the extra ibadah. Some people think if I don't get married, I can do more extra ibadah. And that is what they're, so the Prophet said, turning your back away from my sunnah makes you not belong to me. So it's very important to understand that this dalil also indicates that marriage is better than freeing oneself for nafil ibadah. قد يكون النكاح واجبا. Wajib, marriage can be wajib. We said in general marriage is a matter of choice. It's better to get married. It's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, but it's not an obligation. But sometimes it is. And which situation marriage is mandatory is when the person is afraid that العنت, يعني he's afraid he might fall in fahisha, he might commit zina. He starts realizing, I can't control it anymore. If it's leading him to the haram, if it's making him commit haram and fall into haram because he's not married, he cannot fulfill his shahwa, يعني أولئك هم العادون. He cannot fulfill his shahwa without a wife other than in haram way, forbidden way. So then it becomes an obligatory for him to get married. It's not a matter of choice. So he said, oh, it's like, I don't need to get married. And the ulama from before used to accuse the person who does that. They said, يعني, there is a chance that you don't want to get married because you're fulfilling your desire in a haram way. So you say, why do I need to get married? So it's a way of accusing the person, okay? So, and or you're thinking that you can be away from the sunnah of the Prophet because you think I don't have to get married. So it's very important that we understand. So when the person is afraid to fall in the haram, or he's falling in the haram because he's not getting married, then it becomes an obligation for him to get married. If he can't, the Prophet ﷺ guided us for the solution when the person can't get married. يقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يا معشر الشباب من استطاع منكم الباءة فليتزوج. Prophet ﷺ addressing the youth, and he says, whoever from amongst you can support. Now الباءة من استطاع منكم الباءة, whoever can do الباءة, can handle الباءة. Here الباءة can mean two things. It can mean the expense of marriage, and it can be the marriage responsibilities. Because someone might be rich and might be able to get married to 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 financially. But because of his age, because of his maturity, because of his experience, he might not be able to fulfill the duties and the rights of the marriage. So فَمَنْ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمُ الْبَاءَ means who can support and who can afford and who can handle it. Okay? Who can handle the marriage. The Prophet ﷺ said, then let him get married. He should. فَإِنَّهُ أَغَضُّ لِلْبَصَرِ وَأَحْسَنُ لِلْفَرْجِ. It's better for the eyes to lower your gaze and to protect your private parts. Then he says, ﷺ, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَعَلَيْهِ بِالصَّوْمِ فَإِنَّهُ لَهُ وِجَاءٌ. And who cannot, then let him fast. Let him fast. فإنه له وجاء. يعني الوجاء في لغة العرب is رد الخصيتين. يعني again less excretion of hormones while the person is fasting, sexual hormones, so it lower and controls his desires. But it's in other words, it's more protection, the fasting from the sexual desires. Okay. النكاح له مصالح. nikah, marriage, has many benefits يعني according to this hadith and other ahadith. أغض للبصر وأحصن للفرج. Helps you to lower your gaze. Helps you to protect your private parts. فيه استقرار العواطف. Makes you control your feelings. Your feelings. يعني you reach an age where you need a partner. You need a soulmate. So once the person is married, that's it. He doesn't need to worry about that. He goes, he works, he interacts with women, he come across women in his business, wherever he works, in school. يعني he knows the police is back home. So he watch out. So he's controlling himself, he's controlling his desires, he's controlling his feelings. He's not like in a storm, in the middle of the waves. Every time he sees a girl or a girl look at him, he thinks she loves him, okay? Or he falls in love with every woman he sees. Once he gets married, it controls and istiqrar al-awatif, controls his feelings and sabr. And also protecting the mujtama' and the society from all the haram and the khaba'ith and the shar and the immorality that come along with people who don't get married, and so they have to fulfill their desires somewhere else or somehow. Also, it's the foundation blocks of the building foundation for the family. The family is so important in Islam. So marriage cannot be established without marriage. A family cannot be established without marriage. So it's very important. That is some of the benefits of marriage. قل العلماء ينبغي للإنسان إذا أراد أن يتزوج أن يجعل من نيته أموره. The scholars say if a person decides to get married, then he should have some of the following intentions, not limited to, but includes. He should have specific intentions when a person wants to get married. أولا أن يغض بصره. يعني the person should get married with the intention, so I can control my eyes. I can lower my gaze. Okay, I want to get married, so I don't have to be looking right and left. So that is one thing. ثانيا طلب النسل. I should get married because I want to have offspring. I have to increase the number of the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So طلب النسل is غاية. يعني one of the main reasons behind marriage is offspring, for reproduction. So it's very important that intention is there. جاء رجل إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال إني خطبت أو قال تزوجت امرأة ليست بولود. A man came to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم and he said, I married a woman, or I got engaged to a woman, and she's not fertile. She's infertile. She cannot have kids. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم دعها. يعني leave her. Now the point does not say it's haram to marry a woman who's infertile, but the Prophet ﷺ wants to emphasize the point that this should be present, this intention to have kids and to increase the number of the ummah and to have a family that fears Allah should be present in your intention when you get married. So we said that marriage, sometimes it's wajib, it's a must. It's haram not to get married. And sometimes marriage, in general, marriage is sunnah, and recommended, and mandoob. And sometimes marriage is mubah. Yani mubah, yani permissible. In the sense, when we talk about the ahkam, the 5 things, wajib, mandoob, or mustahab, then you have mubah, then you have makruh, and you have haram. So marriage can be mubah, okay, and mubah, يعني permissible. For an old person who doesn't have any more desires, it's mubah for him, permissible, but it's not recommended in the sense that it's something it's good to do. It's mubah for a person who doesn't have desires anymore. So that is where marriage can be can marriage be haram?
Yes.
Yeah?
If it's going to lead to haram,
No.
the woman, then he knows that he's going to be doing something haram.
Not exactly. Yeah. Yeah, getting married to a mahram, to a relative who you cannot marry, sister, niece, mother, aunt. Okay, that is haram. Getting married to a woman who's pregnant is haram. Getting married to a woman who's in her period, not in her period, in her iddah, is haram. Yani her husband died or she got divorced. All that is haram. While in ihram, ahsant. While muhrim, if a person is in ihram, a man or a woman, it's haram to get married. Okay, so all these are scenarios that are haram. Getting married to kafir woman, an idol worshipper, or a Muslim woman getting married to a kafir man, or whoever he is. If he's not Muslim, it's haram. Right? So all these are scenarios. يقول المؤلف ومن أراد خطبة امرأة فله النظر منها إلى ما يظهر عادة. Now he goes to start talking about you're interested in a woman. So now we give that little introduction of getting of a nikah. Now you found a person. You heard about a person. Your mom saw someone and she likes you to meet her. She likes you to marry her. يعني propose. So what we do and how we should conduct ourselves during those things. يقول المؤلف رحمه الله ومن أراد خطبة امرأة. خطبة يعني not خطبة. خطبة يعني the speech. خطبة. خطبة is the proposing and the engagement. فمن أراد خطبة امرأة فله النظر منها إلى ما يظهر عادة. So whoever interested in marrying a woman or proposing to a woman or getting engaged to a woman, then it's permissible for him to look at her and to see from her what is usually showing. Okay? What would usually show, that is what's permissible for him to see. Yes, he can see a woman without hijab, even if they're not married, even if there is no contract yet. But if he's interested in marrying her, he can see what is usually shown. يعني when she's between her family, when she's between her parents, her brothers, her whoever, whatever usually a woman will show in her house, he can see. Usually the woman in her house doesn't cover her head, okay? And usually some of her arms will show, some of her legs will show. So that is the extent. That is the extent. Alright? Hadith Jabir. Now someone say, oh, wait a second. I didn't know that. Okay, they didn't tell me that. Okay. يقول جابر رضي الله عنه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا خطب أحدكم امرأة فلينظر إلى ما يدعوه إلى نكاحه. If a person wants to propose to a woman, let him look at her and see in her something that he would like, so he will continue that transaction. Okay? He wants to see something he likes. And that is to emphasize the point that you should marry someone that you like. Okay? Some people, it's a woman, who cares? But maybe you don't care the first few days or few weeks. Then when there is nothing in her that makes you happy or excited, well, it's harmful for her, because you can go and get married again. Alright? So you go and you see something in her that you like, and that is why the Sharia allows this. وفي حديث أبي حميد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إذا خطب أحدكم امرأة فلا جناح عليه أن ينظر إليها. Now the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم says لا جناح. إيش يعني؟ لا إثم. يعني understood from before it was إثم. So now it's not. So he says صلى الله عليه وسلم, if someone wants to propose to a woman, someone wants to marry a woman, then there is no harm and there is no sin for him to look at her. To look at her. Alright. But can he look at her without her knowing? He hides. He hides in the street and he sees her coming from far. He waits and he looks, or he sneaks a peek. She's on the roof, and she's putting the whatever. She's taking care of the laundry. Can he go on a higher roof and take a look? Okay. Does she have to know that he's looking? The Prophet ﷺ said no. She doesn't have to. Okay? She doesn't have to know. Okay? And we will understand very. So يقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا كان إنما ينظر إليها للخطبة. He has to be looking with the intention of getting married. And he's serious. He's not shopping around. The point it reaches where he can become allowed to go and see her, that is when he has known enough about her that, you know what, I really am very interested in her. But not like he sees 6 or 7 women a day. They take him on a tour and see this one and that. That is not what this is. This is after you know enough about the person that you think there is a high chance, I want to marry this woman. I like her name, I like her reputation, I like her khuluq, her deen, her manners, this and that, her family. Now I just want to see her. We're not saying just open your door for any man to walk in and look at your girls or your daughters to get. That is not the point. Alright? So the intention has to be present that he wants to marry her. He's serious about it. Okay. يقول المؤلف ما يظهر عادة كوجهه وكفيه وقدمه. He says it's allowed for the person who's proposing to look at this woman he's trying to marry and look and see from her what is usually showing. Her face, her arms, her legs. That is what a woman usually show in her house. And the hair and all that. That is what they talk about. يقول النبي حديث أبي حميد إذا كان إنما ينظر إليها للخطبة وإن كانت لا تعلم. Even if she doesn't know. The Prophet says, it's okay to look at her for the intention of marriage, even if she doesn't know. For example, you're a good Muslim and you have a friend and he likes you and he thinks you're a very suitable person, you're very fear Allah, you fear Allah. So he has a sister, he wants you to marry his sister because he trusts you. Okay, but at the same time, you might not like his sister if you see her. So he tells you, you come home, I hide you in the closet. Okay, well, I'm serious. I hide you, or I open the curtain and I'll bring her, I'll talk to her, and you look at her. Now what is the benefit of this? That she doesn't know.
If it's sensitive, she's not going to get hurt feelings.
Look how sensitive this religion is. How many women a person will go and see her and never call back. Not even to say, we're not interested. There ma fi nasib. Inshallah, may Allah send her someone good. They don't. Sometimes they don't even call again. They were calling every single hour before until he got to see her. He didn't like her, whatever reason it is. So now they don't call back. Don't you think that hurts the feeling of a mountain? Of course it's going to hurt her feeling. So look at the benefit of her not knowing. Of her not knowing. Khalas, you know what? I love you, I think she's great, but not my type, for example. And Islam, the Prophet said, look at her to see something you like. Okay? And yes, the hadith of the Prophet, you marry the woman for 4 things, take the one with the deen. But if the one with the deen is something you feel no attraction to, and you will not have desire for her, that's oppression for her. So it's very important that you pay attention to that. It's not like she's religious, that's it. Some men like specific characters. You look for the one with the deen who has the things that you're attracted to, you're inclined to. Okay? Because if you don't, and you're going to marry her because her deen, and then you won't even look at her because she's scary, and anyway, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Beauty is, everyone sees beauty differently. Okay, so it's not something solid yet. So it's very important you take that into consideration. قال جابر فخطبت جارية فكنت أتخبأ لها وأنظر إليها فلما نظرت إلى ما يدعوني إلى نكاحها وتزويجها تزوجت. Jabir رضي الله عنه liked a girl, so he said I used to hide and watch her. So once I saw, now his intention to get married, now his intention is to flirt, not his intention يعني to hook up, to hang out. His intention to get married. So he said, I will hide and watch her. So she didn't know. And once I realized I saw something from her that I liked, I married her. Okay, so that is permissible. Some issues. The first issue, it's not allowed to exchange gifts. It's not allowed to exchange. Now we're talking about this issue, seeing her. Exchange what? Pictures. Pictures. You know the way, sometimes the way it's working these days, they start sending each other pictures on the internet, or her mom goes and gets her picture, or his sister knows her, so she gets her picture, she shows it to him, and he sends his picture, yani Mac Daddy and all that. All that not allowed. Because these pictures can lead to problems. They can be misused. They can be misused. And back in the Muslim world, I can tell you the stories that these camera phones have bought or have brought. Women, separate wedding, women by themselves, they feel free, whatever, and they start taking pictures of each other. These pictures start being emailed or text message to each other, then it falls in the hand of the wrong person. He'll take the picture, cut the head, and paste the head to a naked body. Then he'll go and text the message and the new picture to a family member, to a husband. What do you think a husband will react when he sees that? Okay? So it's very dangerous. So it's haram to be exchanging pictures, just to close the door of falling in the hands of the wrong person and misusing these things. So be aware, those who post their pictures on the internet, Facebook, emailing pictures, saving pictures in their emails, all that, in their documents, all that, they need to delete all that. You don't know who they can fall in the hands of. Okay? Especially the pictures of women. So be aware of that. So exchanging pictures to know each other, that is haram. The second thing, sometimes the woman, when she knows someone coming to look at her, now this person is not hiding, he's coming from the door. We're coming, our son is interested in your daughter, we're coming to see her. So the daughter needs to look beautiful. Sometimes the exaggeration in beautifying oneself can be part of al-gharar. Remember we talked about al-gharar in transactions? Al-gharar يعني cheating. Deceiving. So sometimes she will go and all the painting she finds in Home Depot, she'll put on herself to look completely different person. The hair, the style, the dress, all that. She puts herself into Photoshop. Play with herself. So that is something, beautify yourself is permissible in these situations, but average, not to the point where it becomes deceiving. For example, he likes dark colors and you're white, so you go with the makeup and you make yourself from Africa because you know he likes dark. No. Look natural the way you are. He likes you, alhamdulillah. He doesn't like you, alhamdulillah. You find someone else. But going to the extreme of beautifying and the makeup and all that, and the hairstyles, and she might be bald and go wear the wig or whatever extensions, all that is haram. If she's bald, she's bald. Okay? I'm serious. If she has 10 hair, she has 10 hair. She cannot deceive, and he cannot deceive. He cannot deceive, and so it's very important. These things are clear from the beginning. Okay? Another issue, that proposing, let's say now he sees her, she sees him, they talk, they like each other, now we're engaged. Okay? I'm engaged to you. Very important to remember that al-khalwa between the man and the woman who are engaged without contract is haram. Because there is some crossing of the limits in this period. Oh, they're engaged, so the parents, her parents will say, okay, let them go have dinner together. Let them go walk on the beach together. That is all haram. To be alone is haram. You're still engaged only. You're not married yet. Once the contract, as we will talk about the contract, takes effect or takes place, then you can do this stuff together. But the fact that you're only engaged does not allow you to be alone. Even if in a room by yourself, okay? Inside her house, and her parents sitting next door. No. There should be a chaperone all the time. A man, adult from her family. Don't tell them go for dinner together and send with them her 2-year-old brother. Or 5-year-old, or 10 years old. What are you going to do? You buy him chocolate, go play there, huh? Very important. Okay? So just the fact they're engaged doesn't make them husband and wife. They cannot hold hands. They cannot walk by themselves. They cannot hold hands and walk on the beach by themselves. They cannot drive by themselves. So all these things are very important to pay attention to. يقول المؤلف رحمه الله ولا يخطب الرجل على خطبة أخيه إلا ألا يسكن إليه. And this is the opinion of the majority of the ulama and the 4 madhahib, that it's not allowed, and that's the hadith of the Prophet, it's not allowed for you to propose over your brother's proposal. And we will detail that. But the general fact or the general rule, you cannot propose to a woman that your brother, your Muslim brother, has proposed to already, with some exceptions. But in general, Sister Fatima, daughter of Brother Ali, Brother Muhammad proposed to her. You cannot, in general, you cannot go propose to her too, with exceptions. Okay? فلا يخطب الرجل على خطبة أخيه كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم in the hadith. And the reason why?
It's a transaction. لا يبيع أحدكم على
The same idea. جزاك الله خير. The same idea. Remember we talked about you cannot sell over your brother's sale. And your brother sells something, you can't say, I can sell it to you. You know someone who bought a car from someone, a Muslim, for $100, and you go to him, how much you pay? $100. I can get you the same car for $90. That is haram. Same thing, the same idea. What is the point? And what is the hikmah behind that? What is the wisdom? Exactly. Creates hard feelings, creates grudges, creates spite. That Islam came to eliminate all that. The basic wisdom behind all transactions and the regulation is this, to prevent any hard feelings between the Muslims. So if I propose for a girl, and then I know my so-and-so went to propose to her, and he knows I'm proposing already, especially if they end up accepting him, what do you think that will create in my heart? I'll hate that guy, for example. There will be hate and grudge, and Islam came to prevent all that. Hadith ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا يخطب أحدكم على خطبة أخيه حتى يأذن الخاطب أو يترك. So here, the hadith is clear of Ibn Umar. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, you should not propose over your brother's proposal. Okay, you should not propose to a woman that you know someone proposed to her already. With exceptions, as we will talk about these exceptions. one of the exceptions, أن يأذن خاطب الأول. The first person who proposed, يعني I proposed to a woman, then I'm talking to my friend or someone I know, and he said, you know, I heard so and so brother has a daughter, I'm thinking about proposing the same woman. If I proposed first, if I tell him, you know what, I proposed to her, but it's okay, propose too, and let them choose whoever they like, that's okay. Alright? That's permissible. But if I tell him, no, you do not propose until we hear the answer from them about me, then he's not allowed to propose. The second situation, أن يترك الخاطب الأول. يعني I proposed, and then I called them, I said, you know what, يعني they said, give us a week to ask about you, to check your background, your history, to see if she likes you, this and that. So 2 days later, I just called him, I said, you know what, I don't think I'm ready to get married, thank you very much, I'm so sorry, it's over. If I do that, then he can go and propose. That's it. There is no right for me anymore. Okay? So the first proposal, if the person who proposed first dropped the proposal, says I'm not interested anymore, then the second person can propose. الحالة الثانية ألا يسكن إليها أو لا يسكن إليه. In this situation, Ibn Qudama rahimahullah said, if he proposed, the first one proposed, and this woman said, let us think, or her wali said, let us think, okay? So they're saying, or I go and I see her, and they approved, but I want to think. Because it can go either way. I want to think. I saw her now let me think. But I know they will not hesitate to say no. So they said, if they are in the process of negotiating, let's say they negotiate things, let's say they're in the process of thinking, okay, back and forth, counter offers, all right, all these things, then they said it's permissible to propose. That is that, كما قال الإمام النووي لا بأس للخاطب أن يخطب. But Allahu A'lam, the other opinion is the right opinion, that even if they're still in the process of negotiating, the second person should not come in, because it's the same story. Okay, the same story, and another person coming in might change the ball game. Now the woman doesn't care, I have a backup, okay, so heck with him. He doesn't call us by 12 o'clock today, it's over. But when it's only one option, they might give more time. So Allahu A'lam, that is the point, that if they're still negotiating, it's not permissible to come in. الحالة الرابعة أن يجهل الحال. يعني the second person who wants to propose doesn't know that someone else proposed. So he goes and he proposed. He didn't know. So there is no harm with that. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, when Fatima bint Qais came to ask the Prophet ﷺ that so and so proposed for her, Muawiyah ibn al-Jahm, Abu al-Jahm, she asked the Prophet ﷺ who she should choose. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أما معاوية فرجل صعلوك. يعني Muawiyah is a poor man, doesn't have money. وأما أبو الجهم فرجل لا يضع العصا عن عاتقه. أما أبو الجهم, the other man, so we see that two men proposed to her at the same time, Muawiyah and Abu al-Jahm. أما أبو الجهم فرجل لا يضع العصا عن عاتقه. يعني it can mean two things. Either he's tough with women, but the Allahu A'lam stronger meaning that he's always traveling. He's always traveling. Because if a person is hitting his wife, the Prophet ﷺ will make a comment about it. Okay? So, but either way, the Prophet ﷺ told her, Muawiyah is poor, he cannot maybe afford it, and Abu Jahl always traveling, or he's tough on women. Okay? Then he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, وَعَلَيْكِ بِأُسَامَةٍ. He said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if you want to get married, marry Usama ibn Zayd. Okay, so here you can see that the Prophet, that two people, or maybe three, proposed to the same woman, Fatima bint Qais, at the same time. Abu Jahl, Muawiyah, and Usama. Okay? يقول المؤلف ولا يجوز التصريح بخطبة معتدة. Now, what do we mean when we say معتدة? لا. معتدة is a woman who's in her iddah. She either what? Got divorced or her husband died. Now when we talk about al-iddah, there are two types of iddah. There is iddah ba'ina or iddah غير ba'ina. What that means?
The ba'ina, if the lady lost her husband, says 4 months and 10 days.
That's her iddah. Why you call it ba'ina? The iddah al-ba'ina, if a woman, her husband died, or she got divorced the third time. What is that similar between those two things?
She can't go back to him.
Exactly. There is no marriage again. You see, if a person divorces his wife the first time, she stays in his house, her period, her iddah, the 3 months, the 3 periods, or 3 tahara, in his house. And if he goes to kiss her, yani he says, I take you back, or does anything that indicates that he's taking her back, she's his wife. Again, there's no need for a contract or anything. If he divorces her second time, she stays in his house, the same story. But if he divorces her for the third time, now we know only you got 3 shots. So if you divorce your wife for the third time, you cannot take her back. So she moves out. So that is iddah ba'ina. Yani when she's in her, after third divorce, she still have to serve 3 months, or 3 tahara, 3 periods, but she cannot come back to, we cannot take her back, because it's the third divorce. So in this situation, that is called iddah ba'ina. Mar'a banat, baynuna kubra. Yani you cannot marry her, you cannot get her, take her back. Now, woman, husband died, obviously he's dead, he cannot come back to take her back. Okay? So that is also iddah ba'ina. The iddah غير ba'ina, when a woman is divorced first or second time. So there is a chance to take her back. So in general, she's still married to that person. Because he can take her back anytime. He can sleep with her anytime within this 3 months period. Or 3 tahara. Okay? That's why you cannot propose to a woman like that. So a woman who's being divorced the first or the second time, you cannot even hint that you're interested in her. Because she's still married to someone. But a woman who got divorced the third time, or her husband died and she's in her iddah, and this is what they're talking about. وَلَا يَجُوزُ التَّصْرِيحُ بِخِطْبَةِ مُعْتَدَّةٍ. يعني she's in her iddah. Who? Iddah ba'ina or غير ba'ina? Back. يعني she cannot go back to her husband, because either he's dead or he divorced her 3 times. For this woman, you cannot come straight forward and tell her, I will marry you. Will you marry me? During her iddah. You cannot come straight and say it. Salaha, yani be frank, straightforward. But you can hint. That's what they call ta'reed. You can imply. Huh? يعني when your iddah is over, don't forget about us. تعريض.
Give me an hour.
Why تعريض? يعني because he can get out of it. Oh, I didn't mean that. And once he tells her, I'm going to marry you, then he's stuck. Alright? But if he can hint or imply, that is fine. Okay?
Good question.
Yeah.
For the third time, if she got divorced, based on what you said, means that the idda, she cannot spend the days of the idda in the house of the man who divorced her.
Cannot be with the man. She can't stay in the house if he moves on. Whatever they agree on. But they cannot be in the same house. Cannot have khalu. Alright? Also, مطلق البائن, we said the one whose husband died, we said the one who's divorced third time. Also when there is fasq, we'll talk about these types, but the fasq, يعني the qadi, or they separate because they realize that their marriage is invalid and they cannot get back together. Who gives me an example? A man and a woman got married, and then years later they separated and they cannot get back together. I said, they realized after years that their brother and sister through breastfeeding, or their brother and sisters, and they were separated and they got different names, and then they met back together and they got married and they never knew their brothers and sisters, and then years later they found out. Now these people automatically get separated, okay? And they can never come back together. So during this, that is also, she's in her iddah. She will have her iddah, okay? And bad, she cannot get back to her husband. Also in al-li'an. Al-li'an, yani when a woman accuses her husband of adultery and she does the li'an in Surah An-Nur, also that can be the same scenario. قل المؤلف إذا كانت في العدة فلا يجوز التصريح وإذا كانت في العدة فيجوز التعريض. If she's in her iddah, you cannot right away, يعني البائنة, يعني عدة, she cannot go back to her same husband. You cannot clearly say that I'm gonna marry you, I will marry you, I will have nikah with you, I will have contract with you of marriage. No. But you can imply, okay? You can imply. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى ولا جناح عليكم فيما عرضتم به من خطبة النساء. There is no sin on you, there is no ithm regarding what you imply to marry the woman. Now Allah in this ayat talks about who? The woman who got divorced 3 times? Or the woman who lost her husband who's dead? In Surah Al-Baqarah, when he says that وَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي مَا عَرَّضْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ بِهِ مِنْ خِطْبَةِ النِّسَاءِ. He's talking about the woman who lost her husband, and her husband died. So Allah says, while she's in her iddah, there is no ithm to imply that you're interested. Okay? But don't say it forward or straight forward. Alright. We'll talk next time about the contract of nikah details, but some things to share with you. When we talked about the virtue of marriage and it's recommended, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he mentioned one ayah in the Quran, and he says this ayah is a proof that marriage is something recommended, and something is sunnah, and something that should be done. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى قال ما خطبكما قالتا لا نسقي حتى يصدر الرعاء وأبونا شيخ كبير فسقى لهما ثم تولى إلى الظل فقال ربي إني لمن زلت إلي من خير فقير. And then the story قال إني أريد أن أنكحك إحدى ابنتي هاتين على أن تأجرني 8 حجج فإن أتممت 10 فمن عندي. That's the story of who? Musa alayhi salam. With who? Shu'aib the prophet? No. So this is the story of Musa. When he left Egypt, he came to a well, he saw 2 women, and then he helped them. Then he went to the dhil and asked Allah to bless him. Then one of the women came, my father wants to honor you for what you've done with us. So he goes, then he tells him, I want to marry one of my daughters. But what was the mahr?
For
To work for him for 8 years. And if he wants 10. قال ابن عباس فأتم موسى أفضل الأجلين. Musa fulfilled the best, and that is 10 years. So Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, it's a clear evidence for a person to spend 10 years of his life servicing to pay his mahr. It's a clear proof of the virtue of marriage. To spend 10 years to pay your mahr. Alright? So that is something, just the beauty of Ibn al-Qayyim and how he can deduce the lessons from the ayat, the things you might even pass without paying attention to. قال الإمام أحمد في رواية المروزي ليست العزبة من أمر الإسلام في شيء. شو العزبة؟ العزبة celibacy. And he says, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah says, celibacy and not getting married has nothing to do with Islam. Has nothing to do with Islam. Then he said, وَمَنْ دَعَاكَ إِلَى غَيْرِ التَّزْوِيجِ فَقَدْ دَعَاكَ إِلَى غَيْرِ الْإِسْلَامِ. And who tried to convince you of anything other than marriage, not to get married or delay marriage or whatever, then he had invited you to something other than Islam. The habit of Islam. وَلَوْ تَوْزَوَّجَ بِشْرٍ كَانَ قَدْ تَمَّ أَمْرُهُ. Bishr mean Bishr al-Mirisi. This man, one of the people of Al-Kalam, he got so much into philosophy, and they said the reason he got into that, and then he went astray, and he got off the path, and he left Sirat al-Mustaqim because of philosophy and with the books of the Greeks and all that. He's saying, and if he would have, Imam Ahmad says, and if Bishr would have got married, he would have been saved, and he would have been different. In other words, he's saying, the reason he did not get married, he had too much free time that led him to start reading into this stuff, so he got astray. Alright? فَلَوْ تَزَوَّجَ بِشْرٍ كَانَ قَدْ تَمَّ أَمْرُهُ. وقال إبراهيم بن ميسرة قال لي طاووس لتنكحن لتتزوجن أو لأقولن لك ما قال عمر لأبي دوائب. So he's telling Taus, you either get married or I will tell you what Umar told Abu Dawab. So he said, what did Umar tell Abu Dawab? Umar radiallahu anhu, قال عمر وما يمنعك عن النكاح إلا عجز أو فجور. So Abu Dawab didn't want to get married. So Umar radiallahu anhu tells him, why you don't want to get married? It's either you're sexually dysfunctional or you're committing haram and you don't need to get married. You see? So if someone doesn't want to get married, there is no obvious reason. So either because he cannot, and he got sexual problems, or he's doing it in haram, so why he needs to get married and be responsible. يقول موفق بن قدامة the same في المغني the advanced fiqh. He said, about remember the opinion that said, he says that marriage is better than it's better than نفل العبادة أو وعليكم السلام. He said that marriage is better than freeing oneself for extra ibadah. We already established that. So Ibn Qudama rahimahullah attacked tough on people who say nafl al-ibadah or freeing yourself for extra ibadah is better than marriage. He came down hard on them. So he said in Mughni, وَمِنَ الْعَجَبِ أَنَّ مَنْ يُفَضِّلِ التَّخَلِّي لم يفعل. He said, first he talks about how it's not right. Then he says, and it's really very strange that those who went with the opinion to free yourself for extra ibadah better than marriage, they got married. So if they thought extra ibadah is better than marriage, why they got married? فكيف أجمع على النكاح في فعله وخالف في فضله. هذا ما كان فيهم من يتبع الأفضل عنده ويعمل بالأولى. He said, this group of ulama who said extra ibadah and freeing yourself to be dedicated for extra ibadah is better than marriage. None of them was up to his opinion. They all got married. So none of them would have stayed single to support his opinion. So he's saying, like, obviously it's not the right thing, and that is the right opinion. Also, one thing of the virtues of marriage, you get married, you get money. You get married, Allah will provide. When people don't want to get married because marriage is very expensive. Marriage is too much money. You have to support a family. I can't do that. So someone might ask, is there a dalil that if I get married, Allah will give me? Yes, there is. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى وَلْيَسْتَعْفِفِ الَّذِينَ لَا يَجِدُونَ نِكَاحًا حَتَّى يُغْنِيَهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. So this is an ayah indicates that you're afraid of falling in the haram, then control yourself until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provide for you. So some of the understanding this ayah, you get married and Allah will provide for you. And Allah will take care of you. And how many people, like from amongst us, their situation financially was terrible, then they get married and they have kids and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the door. They don't know how they're supporting. Allah provides and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supports. ويقول الله سبحانه وتعالى وَأَنْكِحُوا الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ وَإِمَائِكُمْ إِنْ يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاءَ يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. And marry the iman, if you can't marry a free woman, you marry the slave women, وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ. If they are poor, Allah will make them rich from His blessings. So marriage can be a reason to get rich, a reason for Allah to open doors for you. So let's keep that in mind. Alright, we stop here inshallah. We continue next time. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.